It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. Brian Klimowski with the National Weather Service in Belmont is in studio again. You're here twice a year.
Twice a year. You
someone
bet.
from the office is twice a year, and we talk to someone from your office at least once a week. Usually on Friday, that's our typical story. We'll do the weekend weather story with you guys and take a look at the week ahead. You were here last year just as fall was beginning, gave us kind of a fall-winter prediction.
Yep.
You're back here today, and towards the end of the show, we'll do a spring-summer prediction. Talk about that. Did the fall-winter pan out like you guys kind of expected this year?
You know, as it turned out, it did, but perhaps the details weren't quite there. We were anticipating kind of a weak El Nino, you know, which might imply warmer than normal temperatures and perhaps an enhancement of the precipitation. That's kind of largely what we had for much of northern Arizona. However, the way the weather was delivered was, you know, as most of us know, very interesting, I'll just say that.
Right, it was really. We're going to look back to it December, January, February, because some interesting storms happened, I think, on each month.
Sure
and some, do we call them phenomenons? Historical events. We'll call them historical
there you
events.
Go.
February was a historical event, and I think December had some historical events as well in it. So you mentioned the El Nino. Did the weak El Nino ever really happen?
Well, it finally did. It was finally officially classified as such just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, just a couple weeks ago.
But yeah,
Is that still affecting us?
It is.
Okay.
Well, you know, to some extent. Most of the time, El Nino conditions really provide impacts to the Southwest generally over the winter. So as we start to evolve into the spring, we're not going to see really any impacts from it.
Okay, all right. Was winter a normal winter for us, below average, or above average for us?
For precipitation temperatures or...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, I guess that is kind of an open question there, isn't it? Let's go precipitation. Did we get as much snow as we should have in the high country? Did we get as much rain in the central part of the state as we should have through the winter?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yes, in a, let me go into the details. As far as the precipitation, it was largely pretty normal. But how that precipitation came was abnormal, meaning it was a warm winter. I think we all felt that. You know,
it was pretty mild.
February felt like spring, you know, to most of us. We had a lot of rain in the high country. You know, we had only about 60% of the snow that we normally get here in the central and northern parts of the state. Out on the eastern rim, even less than that.
Oh.
But the precipitation amount, you know, rain and melted snow, was about normal. For much of northern Arizona. Some locations like Sedona, Oak Creek Canyon were pretty far above normal, actually.
They had a banner monsoon, too, if I'm not mistaken. And that was kind of, I know, a big concern last year after the slide fire was all of the moisture that was falling in Oak Creek Canyon, but it kept seeming to miss that burn area. But they were getting tons of rain up there. They did over the winter, too.
Yep. They've been hit well, you know, I guess, with a lot of precipitation, but not with the intensity that might form, you know, the rock slides in the slide burn area.
Gotcha. So how much snow did the high country get this year?
In Flagstaff, 56 inches so far to date. We would normally have about 90, so we're pretty far behind.
Do you think we'll catch up?
I don't see it. I don't see it right now.
It's pretty warm, and it's been pretty warm, like you said, all winter long.
Yeah. And we're starting to get late in the season. You know, it's harder for us to get big snowstorms this time of year, but it's happened. I mean, it was just 10, 15 years ago, we had, 1 to 2 feet on April Fool's Day, so it can happen.
You hear old timers say sometimes that I remember it snowing here in June.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess it is still possible. The first big storm I can remember, December, I know we had some events that took place, but nothing really stood out in my head as far as being a huge storm. But New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, here we come kicking in the new year, and we had a big one that hit. And the story I have here was Sedona had 9 inches of snow, Cottonwood 8 inches, which is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I know Brad called me that day and said Clarkdale had snow on the ground, and they were just like, oh, snow. Rimrock 7, Camp Verde 5, those are big numbers for this elevation that doesn't normally see snow.
That's what was stunning about that event, is just how cold it was and how low in elevation significant snowfall fell. I mean, 8 inches in Cottonwood Red Rock Crossing in Sedona, with almost a foot of snow. Just amazing amounts in those lower elevations really set that storm apart as being very unique. Most of the locals haven't seen anything like that since the 60s.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah, Mountain Air picked up 20 that time, Mormon Lake 18, 17 in Flagstaff, 14 in Williams, Belmont a foot, and then 15 inches in Payson. Those are big numbers.
Those are big numbers.
And with this state, it seems like when a snowstorm comes, I mean, it just boom, it's all of it, and it doesn't take long for it to happen.
Yeah, it can happen quick. It can happen quick. I mean, we're tapping that warm, moist air off the southern Pacific during a lot of these storms, and when it mixes and interacts with an Arctic air mass, like it did over New Year's, that can be the results. So.
Well, in January, we had about this many stories with you guys. That's not a bad stack right there, Some of the stories, it would be, 1 or 2 a week possibly because storms were rolling through, and each one dumped a little bit of snow and a little bit of rain. And it's kind of funny when you look back at January, December and January, you could see where there were these cold storms that would roll through, and then you'd have these really warm storms roll through. And so it never seemed like there was too much snow around in the high country for very long.
Exactly.
February, we're going to jump ahead to February now. That was a unique month. As you mentioned earlier in the show, it felt like spring, and it really did. Yeah. I mean, Flagstaff was in the 60s. I know Cottonwood hit 80 a couple of times. It was really, really warm, and we set a lot of records that month.
Yeah, I mean, by far, it was the warmest February on record. Our high temperatures, get this, Paul, our high temperatures averaged 10 degrees above normal.
That's crazy.
I mean, for a month-long average, that's almost unheard of. Yeah.
And it's dangerous, too, because it tells everybody, you know what, I'm done with winter now.
Yeah.
Because February is so warm, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, you know what, I'm kind of done with the cold. I don't want it anymore.
Yep.
But that's kind of dangerous because, March, we've had a little bit of stuff happen in March. Well, but I guess the end of February was the end of February is when we were reminded, no. It's still winter.
Exactly. The end of February, early March was very interesting.
Don't want to forget about that one because that was also a very unique storm. It was a back-to-back storm. We were talking just before the show and kind of getting our thoughts collected on that one. But go ahead and fill us in on that one because that was an interesting one. I know I was on vacation the week that it rolled in, and by the end of that week, I was getting calls from the fire districts and departments down here saying there's possible flooding going to occur over the weekend and into Monday. We need to get something on the air to talk about that. So what was that storm all about?
That was an interesting storm. We had a mix, I should say, we had a very large system, a very large trough, I'll just call it, forecast to just center itself over the southwest United States for a number of days, for like 3 or 4 days, which is very moist. So it was a storm that was bringing in a lot of warm, moist air from the south and some relatively cool air from the north and just keeping it over the area for 3 or 4 days. And the potential was for a lot of precipitation to fall, but where that rain-snow line was going to be the challenge. Was that warm air going to push farther north and turn it all into rain, or was the cold air going to dominate and keep it all snow? Had it been all snow, the high country could have had 4 to 5 feet of snow.
That is unbelievable.
Had it been all rain, would have been, 6 inches of rain, and most of it up to elevations of about 7,000 feet fell as rain. So we saw the high water down here in the Verde Valley. But yeah, like you said, it kind of came in 2 pieces. We had one push that came through, dropped about let's say 8 to 10 inches of snow up in the high country, and then the warm air took over. It turned to rain for about 24 hours.
Yes.
So these locations that had all this snow now just melted down to almost nothing overnight. Is when the warm air came in, and started to raise the water levels in Oak Creek. The Verde came up, and then we saw a very strong front, which
was the second part.
What's that?
We're getting to the second part of the storm?
We're getting to the second part.
Let's take a break real quick.
Okay, we'll do
come
that.
back with this. We'll leave him on a cliffhanger here, the second part of the storm. Brian Klimowski with the National Weather Service in Belmont in studio today. I'm Paul David. We'll be back with Countywide in just a couple minutes.
Right, mi cariño. So like I said, everything I learned about cooking, I learned from Grandma's empanadas. Shall we go again?
Yep.
Mix the beef with the onions with the peppers with the paprika with the garlic with the oregano with the cumin. Got it?
Got it.
Throw on the olives, stir, season, stir again, pour out the flour, roll out the dough, make a circle, drop in a fistful of filling, fold over, press down, and ta-da!
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
They said a bottle was just a bottle. That no one would ever notice me. But I knew I could be more. That one day, I would make people smile.
Why is my son having trouble in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with my son over his homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No. He's smart, but his mind wanders.
7 wonders of the world.
Why don't you understand me?
I do. I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking with Brian Klimowski from the National Weather Service in Belmont. We're talking about the big storm in February that caused some flooding. Some Oak Creek came up, Verde River came up. Before we get into part 2 of the storm, we were talking about the first part was mostly snow, and then it changed to rain, and it pretty much washed all that snow away. Just to give you guys a reminder, towards the middle of February, toward the end of February, on the 17th, we had a story, small wildfire touched off by month-old pile burn near San Francisco Peaks. That was with the Coconino National Forest. And that fire had actually had rain and some snow on it prior to being rekindled by wind. On the 17th also we had a brush fire in Prescott Valley, and then shortly after that we had one in Chino Valley. And then on February 20th I wrote a story switching back to winter. Yeah. And then it was shortly after that that you had that storm. It was towards a couple weeks later that we had the big one hit. Yeah. Okay, so now we're through the weekend, Saturday into Sunday. We've got the rain coming down. All that snow that fell is gone, but there's a second beast coming through.
That's right. What we saw coming at the end was the big front was going to move through, and we were going to have this band of precipitation, heavy precipitation, probably lasting for about 6 hours, sweep across the state from west to east, and drop a significant amount of precipitation, rain turning back to snow, and very hazardous conditions forming, depending on where you were in the state, but generally during the day on Monday, So we saw that front enter in from the west and start to sweep across the state, and it was pretty obvious that conditions, let's say in our area, Flagstaff, were going to deteriorate very quickly, during the late morning, early afternoon, and indeed that's what happened. We had about 1 to 2 inches of precipitation form as the front came through, or I should say fall as the front came through, but it changed to snow within about an hour after the front started to impinge on the area. So, where a lot of folks went to bed the night before with this misty, warm rain falling, they woke up to kind of breezy and warm conditions.
I did.
Late morning,
yeah, it was very nice.
It started to rain a little bit, and then as soon as the cold air of that front hit, it just changed to heavy wet snow. And if you're not used to driving on that, it's extremely hazardous. We had a lot of closures, and very quickly picked up another 8 to 12 inches of snow. I mean, very quickly. I'm very happy that they didn't hold school that day up in the high country, because I don't know how they would have got the kids home. It was very, very challenging.
I was at work that day. And now, Twitter, you have to follow Twitter. National Weather Service is really good about sending out tweets, as is ADON. I think you guys are just fantastic, both of you. I remember getting a tweet that at a certain time in the morning, somebody tweeted out, "It is rain to snow in Seligman." Yeah. I thought, okay, Seligman, that's a ways out there. About an hour later, rain to snow in Belmont. I thought, well, I got about an hour left here before. And then sure enough, I was outside, and I could actually see the rain coming down at an angle. And then it just like somebody flipped a switch, turned to snow. And it was coming down so fast, I think there was 2 inches in my driveway by the time I got home, and up to 8 inches by the time that evening came down. I had to clear it out for my wife to get home. So yeah, we had some interesting weather through the winter months.
Yeah, we did.
Not as much as we'd like. Forest Service, I know they're concerned. They were here on Tuesday, Coconino National Forest. They're concerned with the snowpack and the fact that the large fuels in the forest have not been, I guess, sort of waterlogged, because that snowpack gets a chance to soak in. So they're watching things very carefully. Let's real quick, what is our spring-summer prediction, Brian? I'll put you on the spot for that one. What are we expecting spring and summer? Because the last 2 summers, monsoon, have been phenomenal.
Yeah. Let me break it up into two different periods. Let's talk about April, May, June,
okay.
To kind of take us into the monsoon.
All right.
If you consult the experts, and, we aren't the experts as far as long-term outlooks are, but those folks are out east, and chatting with them, they're still calling for at or above normal precipitation for us, which is great news. We have a pretty active what's called a southern jet stream, which has been bringing some of these warm storms into the area, and they are anticipating a continuation of that. Right now I don't see anything on the horizon, with the forecast models that we have, but I have confidence that, they're on the right track. As far as the monsoon, they're also leaning that way as well, that we could be lucky enough to have a third straight year of above normal monsoon.
Wow.
That's where they're kind of leaning toward right now. Now, the variance in any long-term forecast like this is about this big, with the low end, the high end here, average here, and for a forecast or an outlook of a more moist monsoon, kind of take that window and you just shift it a little bit. So there's still a large chance it could be below normal, but the greater probability is that it could be at or above normal again for the precipitation.
I've been told by your guys when I talk to them on the phone that although we have a 7-day forecast, about 3 days out is a strong confidence in the 3 days out, but beyond that, and that's why folks will probably hear me when I do the weather. I'll usually talk about today, tonight, and tomorrow, and then I may say, okay, we're going to be a few degrees warmer. Like right now, today's forecast, we're going to be 4 to 6 degrees warmer tomorrow, and then a little warmer yet by Saturday. So, I mean, Cottonwood's looking at the mid-80s by the end of the week into the weekend. So it's really beautiful weather on the way. I wanted to backtrack real quick to the February storm. Not only did that storm bring a bit of flooding and stuff going on, but the really good news about that one was that Williams, who's been in water restrictions for, it seems like a couple of years now, those were lifted because their aquifers had filled up. And Lake Mary also just...
did you see that? That was something.
Went up 60% in just a couple of days. I mean, that much water dumped in there just like that. So
very encouraging.
Both those things are very good, and of course that benefits us down here as well when there's a lot of water up top. Okay, so spring we're looking at maybe a few more showers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then monsoon season could be a really, really good monsoon season.
Yeah, we'll see. Something else to keep your eye on is when we have low snowpack in the winter, and what might be called a drier winter in the Southwest, it tends to encourage an earlier start to the monsoon. We've seen kind of a general trend in this area, and I wouldn't be surprised if it started, a little bit early this year because there's not that much snowpack left in the mountains. The Southwest is going to heat up more, in the late spring and early summer, and that's what engenders the conditions that kind of kicks in the monsoon.
That makes sense. Could bring it in a little bit early.
Yeah, you bet.
Let's take our second break. Brian Klimowski with the National Weather Service in Belmont in studio today. Countywide back in just a couple of minutes.
Of all the things you've done with your bike, donating it to Goodwill may be the most incredible of all. Your donations help fund job placement and training for people in your community, which means your stuff can be more powerful than you think. Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Enroll
every budget, so don't accept defeat. Now you can get covered and still buy me treats.
You take care of your pets. Now it's their turn to take care of you. Visit getcoveredamerica.org to learn about your health insurance options.
Welcome back. We've got a few minutes left in the program. Brian Klimowski with the National Weather Service in Belmont is here today. Real quick, we're trying to get everybody to think wildfire season, defensible space, one less spark, all that good stuff. You guys play a role during the wildfire season, an important role for these firefighters. What is your role, and have you guys done anything to kind of gear up for that?
Oh, absolutely. Every spring, early summer, we spend a lot of time with the Forest Service and those that manage the wildfires to provide them the outlooks they need, all of the meteorological information they need, and any type of materials, information that can help them make the best decisions that they can when they're staffing up resources and just managing all the issues that they have to.
Do you guys put out those wildfire weather forecasts? Is that you?
That's us, yeah.
Okay.
We do that as well.
And who does that, and is that a specific job?
It is, but it rotates from forecaster to forecaster. But yes, we have one person that's specifically dedicated to wildfire and our fire weather forecasts this time of year.
Is that Andy?
Oh, well, no, it rotates from forecaster to forecaster.
Okay, so it
shift
rotates.
to shift. Absolutely.
Now, when there is a wildfire taking place, does the National Weather Service actually respond to that wildfire? Are you guys in camp with the firefighters?
Two stages.
Okay.
When a wildfire or a prescribed burn is behaving, as expected, many times we do not, staff somebody on the wildfire itself. But once it reaches a specific threshold, indeed, there's a National Weather Service meteorologist will be specifically assigned to that wildfire and be on the front lines with those folks fighting the fire.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an exciting job.
Yeah. Have you done that before?
I have not done that myself.
No.
We have two that are trained to do that in our office.
What kind of training does that require? I mean, do they have to know how to fight fire as well, or?
No, it's a lot of training in understanding the microclimates and just how fire can influence weather itself.
Okay.
You have to understand the behavior of fire and the impacts that weather has on fire and a flaming front, and just how wind flows around mountain, and then learning how to communicate that information. Because you might have the whole picture in your head, but if you can't communicate it effectively, then that information is lost. So there's a lot of communication training and just understanding the microclimates and the relationship between weather and fire.
Well, that's crazy. That's going to be a tough job.
It is. It is.
That's going to be a really tough job. Brian Klimowski, as always, great to see you.
You bet.
We really appreciate you guys up there. I think you do a great job predicting the weather forecast. That's for sure. All right, that's today's Countywide. I'm Paul David, and we will talk to you again next time.